A warm good afternoon and Jai Hind, dear children. Um, you are here with your Shomi ma'am, your English teacher. And today we would start with the moments. Okay, so let me show you how the book looks like. So I know this will have, the what do you call mirror effect. So whatever. This is your next book after Beehive. So those who haven't yet bought it, please order it online or just check out the stores. They might have come right now. By now, sorry. Okay, so this is a supplementary reader in English for class 9 by NCERT. And we shall start with the very first chapter, that is The Lost Child. And I can see the poet, the author of this story is Mulk Raj Anand. I remember that he is one of a very good authors of, I would say, rather specifically that he was an Indian author. And so before we start with this beautiful, you know, story, I would like to share something about this author, Mulk Raj Anand. Well, he was an Indian writer in English, notable for his depiction of the lives of the poorer castes in traditional Indian society. And he was one of the pioneers of Indo-Anglian fiction. He, together with Mr. R.K. Narayan, Ahmad Ali, and Raja Rao, was one of the first India-based writers in English to gain an international readership. Mr. Anand is admired for his novels and short stories, which have acquired the status of classics of modern Indian English literature. And they are noted for their perceptive insight into the lives of the oppressed and for their analysis of impoverishment, exploitation, and misfortune. So, what I gathered was that basically he used to write about the condition of the lower strata of people in the Indian society, and he has, written novels like Untouchable. Then you have other works on the Indian poor, such as Coolie. Then The Two Leaves and a Bud. He's also noted for being among the first writers to incorporate Punjabi and Hindustani idioms into English, and was also a recipient of the civilian honor of the Padma Bhushan. Okay, so he was born on 12th of December 1905 and died on 28th of September 2004. So that was precisely in a nutshell about Mulk Raj Anand. Okay, and he has also been, bestowed with Sahitya Academy Award and the International Peace Prize as well. Okay, so he has written many, his works basically hovered around the, I would say, the condition of the poor people. Okay, and that's it. And probably this chapter, The Lost Child, caters to the emotions, about, I would say, the importance of having parents, how a child feels when he or she is not having parents or has lost one of them. So let's take a sneak peek into this story. Okay, so right now what I'll do is I shall I shall narrate the whole story probably. And then in my next video, I shall give you the explanations. And at the same time, I would also share maybe Word format, a PPT regarding the explanation in your Google Classrooms. So without any further delay, let me share the story along with you. Okay, so those who don't have the, the books, you may just listen to what I'm narrating. Well, this is on page number 1 of your books, as I had shared moments. Okay, the lost child. A child goes to a fair with his parents. He's happy and excited and wants the sweets and toys displayed there, but his parents don't buy them for him. Why then does he refuse when someone else offers them to him? So that's a very good question. Let's see what the author had to say. It was a festival of spring. From the wintry shades of narrow lanes and alleys emerged a gaily clad humanity. Some walked, some rode on horses, others sat being carried in bamboo and bullock carts. One little boy ran between his father's legs, brimming over with life and laughter. So you see in this very first paragraph, the author talks about uh, uh, how a fair looks like, okay, and how he's talking about precisely what a person can visualize with his eyes closed. If we talk about fair, you would find all kinds of people flocking around. You would find them clad in different kinds of attires. Some may be sophisticated, the others may be, just like your next door neighbor. And you would also find many types of carts, like bullock carts, then horse driven carts, then many such things. Okay, then you would also find some fanfare kind of roller coasters. Okay, so you have a very nice picture also shared here in your books. So you can see, this is the child who probably gets lost in the fair. Okay. Come, child, come, called his parents as he lagged behind, fascinated by the toys in the shops that lined the way. He hurried towards his parents, his feet obedient to their call, his eyes still lingering on the receding toys. As he came to where they had stopped to wait for him, he could not suppress the desire of his heart, even though he well knew the old cold stare of refusal in their eyes. I want the toy, he pleaded. His father looked at him, red-eyed in his familiar tyrant's way. His mother, melted by the free spirit of the day, was tender, and, giving him her finger to hold, said, Look, child, what is before you? It was a flowering mustard field, pale like melting gold as it swept across miles and miles of even land. A group of dragonflies were bustling about on their gaudy purple wings, intercepting the flight of a lone black bee or butterfly in search of sweetness from the flowers. The child followed them in the air with his gaze. Still one of them would still its wings and rest, and he would try to catch it, but it would go fluttering, flapping up into the air when he had almost caught it in his hands. Then his mother gave a cautionary call. Come, child, come. Come onto the footpath. So you see, till now, what has happened in the story is that the author is very well, explaining how the little child keeps on, craving for the toys that he wished to buy, but his parents, looking into the condition, the financial condition, as I had shared before, that Mulk Raj Anand used to talk about the oppressed, the people who were below the poverty line, So looking into the pockets, he was able to understand that he could not afford those toys, which his child wanted. Okay, so then what happened? His father, as it's very common kind of emotion. his father just showed, red eyes, like no, with his ogling eyes. And then Mama had to sober down. So she tried to divert his attentions. And then very beautifully, the author has explained the beauty of those dragonflies which were flying in the air. And the child was running after it as if he wanted to catch one of them. And then Mama tries to drive his attention towards the footpath, and she wanted the child to walk very carefully on the footpath. He ran towards his parents gaily and walked abreast of them for a while, being, however, soon left behind, attracted by the little insects and worms along the footpath that were teeming out from their hiding places to enjoy the sunshine. Okay, so that was the condition of the child, and he was actually, running behind his parents and wanted to keep a track. Okay, so come, child, come. His parents called from the shade of a grove where they had seated themselves on the edge of a well. He ran towards them. A shower of young flowers fell upon the child as he entered the grove, and forgetting his parents, he began to gather the raining petals in his hands. But lo, he heard the cooing of doves and ran towards his parents, shouting, "The dove, the dove!" The raining petals dropped from his forgotten hands. "Come, child, come," they called out to the child, who had now gone running in wild capers round the banyan tree, and gathering him up, they took the narrow, winding footpath which led to the fair through the mustard fields. So now the child was running behind his parents and came across these beautiful, the petals of what's that? I think it's the flowers which were, the petals were showering on him just the moment when he entered the grove. Okay, so he was overjoyed to see that, the showering of the flower petals on him. And then all of a sudden, he found that there were doves also. Doves are kind of, beautiful birds which symbolize peace. Okay, so because they are, white in color. So now this child was fascinated when he saw these doves, and then he kept shouting at his parents to, so that, the parents get attracted to him and come back to, just be a part of that joy, that excitement of watching a dove. As they neared the village, the child could see many other footpaths full of throngs converging to the whirlpool of the fair, and felt at once repelled and fascinated by the confusion of the world he was entering. So now, till now, he wasn't a part of the fair. Okay, so he was about to enter the fair, and he was about to come across all the attractions which he was about find in the fair. A sweetmeat seller hawked gulab jamun, rasagulla, barfi, jalebi at the corner of the entrance, and crowd pressed round his counter at the foot of an architecture of many colored sweets decorated with leaves of silver and gold. So now the author is beautifully explaining each and every nitty-gritties of the presentation, how that hawker was presenting his sweets. Okay, so he had array of sweets in various colors, because gulab jamun is in black and brown, and rasgulla is white, jalebi, that is yellow, and barfi, white and cream in color. So you see that the array of the cornucopia of the sweets presented beautifully. So that is what the author's expertise in, because before, the author explained beautifully the showering of the petals in the group, and then the dove, and then the fanfare which the child was about to come across in the fair. And then now he was able to see this the sweetmeat seller. Okay. The child started open-eyed and his mouth watered for the barfi. That was his favorite sweet. I want that barfi. So, that's very it's, I would say, it's a very common emotion which every child would have. When you come across your favorite things, you feel like pouncing on it and just grabbing it, right? So similarly, this child was pointing out to the barfi and just wanted that barfi because it was his favorite. So let's see whether he had it or not. I want that Barfi, he slowly murmured, but he half knew as he begged that his plea would not be heeded because his parents would say he was greedy. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. So he, in his heart of hearts, he knew that his voice won't be heard because if he would shout for Barfi, his parents would say that he shouldn't be greedy. A flower seller hopped. A garland of gulmohar, a garland of gulmohar. The child seemed irresistibly drawn. He went towards the basket where the flowers lay heaped and half murmured, I want that garland. But he well knew his parents would refuse to buy him those flowers because they would say that they were cheap. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. A man stood holding a pole with yellow, red, green, and purple balloons flying from it. The child was simply carried away by the rainbow glory of their silken colors, and he was filled with an overwhelming desire to possess them all. But he well knew his parents would never buy him the balloons because they would say he was too old to play with such toys. So he walked on farther. So, these are the pretty, I would say, lame excuses of the parents. That is how they tend to distract the children. When children tend to crave for some things. Okay, so initially it was the sweet. Then the author talks about the garland of Gulmohar, and the child a moment to himself that his parents won't allow him to buy those garland. The excuse would be that they were very cheap. Then the author beautifully talks about those beautiful balloons, those colorful balloons, and when he wanted to, own one of them, probably, so he knew that again it won't be his voice won't be heard by his parents because what he would get to know would be that his parents would give, just present him with an answer that he was old enough to play with balloons. Okay. So he wasn't that child of maybe say 2 to 3 years who would enjoy playing with balloons. So he knew in his heart of hearts that he would not be, listened to. A snake charmer stood playing a flute to a snake which coiled itself in a basket, its head raised in a graceful bend like the neck of a swan, while the music stole into its invisible ears like the gentle rippling of an invisible waterfall. The child went towards the snake charmer, but knowing his parents had forbidden him to hear such coarse music as the snake charmer played, he proceeded further. So, after that balloons, it was the turn of the snake charmer. But, listening to such tunes, he knew that his parents would say that he shouldn't listen to such coarse music, as if that music wasn't very appealing. So he should not stay there. There was a roundabout in full swing. Men, women, and children carried away in a whirling motion, shrieked and cried with dizzy laughter. The child watched them intently, and then he made a bold request. I want to go on that roundabout. Please, father, please, mother. So, after all these, he couldn't resist himself from pleading his parents to allow him to go and have a joyride in that roller coaster. There was no reply. Okay, he turned to look at his parents. They were not there ahead of him. He turned to look on either side. They were not there. He looked behind. There was no sign of them. So now this is the climax. Okay, he was totally left all alone. He couldn't see his parents in and around him. A full, deep cry rose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood, crying in real fear. Mother, father! Tears rolled down from his eyes, hot and fierce. His flushed face was convulsed with fear. Panic stricken, he ran to one side first, then to the other, hither and thither, in all directions, knowing not where to go. Mother, father, he waved. His yellow turban came untied, and his clothes became muddy. Having run to and fro in a rage of running for a while, he stood defeated, his cries suppressed into sobs. At little distances on the green grass, he could see through his filmy eyes men and women talking. He tried to look intently among the patches of bright yellow clouds, but there was no sign of his father and mother among these people who seemed to laugh and talk just for the sake of laughing and talking. So now, the author beautifully explains the condition of that particular place, how all the people were, in that joyful mood, and they were talking, laughing, and giggling, uh, men and women and children. And here the child was totally lost. He was wailing, he was sobbing, he was very much in a turmoil of emotions. He was very unhappy. He was very glum, in a morose state, and he was craving for his parents to be back beside him. Till then he was just um, sharing his grudge that his parents never allowed him to buy those things and all. Okay, so now when he did not find his parents beside him, he, in his heart of hearts, was able to understand the deep pain of not having his parents beside him. Okay, so he was running in and around in search of his parents. Okay, he ran quickly again, this time to shrine to which people seemed to be crowding. Every little inch of space here was congested with men, but he ran through people's legs, his little sob lingering, Mother, Father. Near the entrance to the temple, however, the crowd became very thick. Men jostled each other, heavy men with flashing murderous eyes and hefty shoulders. The poor child struggled to thrust a way between their feet, but knocked to and fro by the brutal movements. He might have even trampled underfoot had he not shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice, Father, Mother! A man in the surging crowd heard his cry and, stooping with great difficulty, lifted him up in his arms. How did you get here, child? Whose baby are you? The man asked as he steered clear of the mass. The child wept more bitterly than ever now and only cried, I want my mother! I want my father! The man tried to soothe him by taking him to the roundabout. Will you have a ride on the horse? He gently asked as he approached the ring. The child's throat tore into 1,000 shrill sobs, and he only shouted, I want my mother! I want my father! The man headed towards a place where the snake charmer still played on the flute to the swaying cobra. Listen to that nice music, child, he pleaded. But the child shut his ears with his fingers and shouted his double-pitched strain, like this. I want my mother. I want my father. The man took him near the balloons, thinking the bright colors of the balloons would distract the child's attention and quieten him. Would you like a rainbow-colored balloon? He persuasively asked. The child turned his eyes from the flying balloons and just sobbed, I want my mother. I want my father. The man, still trying to make the child happy, bore him to the gate where the flower seller sat. Look, can you smell those nice flowers, child? Would you like a garland to put around your neck? Okay, so you see, this stranger, he was trying to go to those places where the child always, felt like having those things. But the child wasn't at all attracted to those things. He did not want the balloons. He did not enjoy the snake charmer. He did not want the garlands. The child turned his nose away from the basket and reiterated his sob. I want my mother. I want my father. Thinking to humor his disconsolate charge by a gift of sweets, the man took him to the counter of the sweet shop. What sweets would you like, child? He asked. The child turned his face from the sweet shop and only sobbed, I want my mother. I want my father. So that's the end of the story by Mulkraj Anand. So now, children, I hope by now you must have understood the importance of having parents with you, how much they mean to a child. It's amazingly written, and I would request all of you, not to nag so much to your parents. Be always grateful with whatever they have, gifted you with. They have gifted you with the comfort, with all the luxuries they could afford, isn't it? Try to be thankful to them. Try to be grateful to them. You can always say thank you by end of the day to your parents at least once a week to make them feel so special. Especially, during this pandemic times, you should always feel very thankful to your parents who have been, there with you like a strong pillar, which catered to all your needs, all your requirements and everything, and being there by your side in throughout the thick and thin, isn't it? Because, children, it's really easy to crave for more and more. But if you just lose somebody special as your parents, you would always, have that grudge of not paying attention to them at all, of not giving them their due importance. Okay, so this story, The Lost Child, I hope had triggered the emotions, the sensitivity in you, isn't it? Because I know my children are very smart, my children are very sensitive, my children are very emotional, and they know the importance of having their parents. Okay, so just go through the story once again, and in my next video, I shall give the explanation of all the needed statements, the words, the expressions. Until then, happy reading and God bless you. And don't forget, give a hug to your parents once a while. That's all from my side. Thank you and Jai Hind.